And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara Podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Susan Miller, internationally known author, columnist, and TV personality. She is the founder of AstrologyZone.com. Her website is considered an authority in the field of Western astrology and is read avidly by 13 million unique readers a year. She's a highly respected astrological thinker and is recognized worldwide for her astrological writings into areas of business, tech, lifestyle, culture, and the economy. Susan, thank you so much for joining me and welcome.
Thank you for inviting me. You have a great show.
Thank you. Well, Susan, how did you become interested in being an astrologer in the first place?
You know, first of all, no one I know who is in the field believed in astrology until they studied it. None of us did, not even my mother. My mother was quite a scholar. She didn't do consultations. She just kept doing study. And I was born with a terrible birth defect, and the doctors didn't know what it was. And in those days, they didn't have the technical MRIs, the really good ones that you have now. So they couldn't see anything. They couldn't tell what was wrong with me. So therefore, I was making it up. And so here I was, a little child. Even my mother said when I was little and started crawling, I would cry so much and drag the leg because the problem was from the knee to the hip. She thought I had colic. She thought I was allergic to milk and had nothing to do with it. I would get attacks twice a year. I never knew, no, once a year, I'd say. Once a year for 6 to 8 weeks, usually on a holiday. On my birthday, Thanksgiving, Christmas, some big event. And my mother couldn't figure out why I would get sick on holidays. But she supposed that maybe it's because I had so much energy and always so excited, and I'm still that way. I have lots of energy. She thought maybe it was the excitement, and she always tried to keep me like down a little bit. That didn't work. I'm just a happy person. But when I was 14, it came to a head. I went to the hospital in an ambulance. I had a wonderful doctor. My father had been doing research for a year, asking everyone he knew. He had an Italian specialty grocery store. All the nurses and doctors came in for sandwiches at lunchtime. And, the prosciutto, the mozzarella, all the wonderful things. And he got a name that so many people were giving him over and over. And I had the operation, but I was in the hospital a year. And I needed to not go to high school, but to do physical therapy a lot. Every day, a different part of my leg. I had to go down to the hospital as a outpatient. And it was far from my house. I was on 75th Street. The hospital was on 17th Street. And my mother and I would go. And, it was very painful because they had tourniqueted me so tight. The problem was I was bleeding internally at a very dangerous rate. And that was what they couldn't see in all their equipment. The veins were like tissue paper and completely vanishing under any kind of stress, including happiness for birthday or Christmas when you're a little kid. And so far in my life, I've had 40 blood transfusions. It took a village to get me well. One night I had 18 of those 40. And I died on the table. They brought me back. And, and my father said, when you go to college, and I went to New York University, he said, major in business, Susan, you'll always work. We have a very practical family. So this is the Italian side of my family. My mother's side is German, and that's the math side that is so important in astrology. You have to like math or you'll probably give up. You have to really enjoy it. I do. And I went to NYU and I went into publishing. I did not want anyone to know I knew astrology. So my first job was Life magazine, 17 magazine, different magazines. Then I worked for Young and Rubicon. But I really loved photography. If you like astrology, you're right brain. If you like art and photography, you have a strong right brain because you're really looking at visuals. When I do your horoscope, I'm looking at a map of the sky and where the planets are situated. And I have to crack the code. Sometimes I talk to it. I talk to the planets and I say, talk to me. Tell me what you're trying to say. Each sign, this different message. And I'm known to be very detailed. Every month I write between 30 and 40,000 words divided by 12 signs. Each one takes me about 7 hours to write. I know my job is writing, not meeting people all day. I know my job is to write. And I don't know how I know that, but I do. And I love what I do. And it's constantly cracking the code on a puzzle. But I didn't want anyone to know I knew astrology. I asked my mother to teach me. She kept saying no. I was 14 years old. I said, look, I'm going to go through 2.5 years of grueling physical therapy. I want to know if there's a happy ending. Is there a rainbow at the end of all this? And she said, no, if you don't study 12 years, you won't be any good. And you'll start talking to your friends and reading their chart. I said, I don't have any friends. I'm not in school. My friends are sick of me being sick. I don't have friends. And, people go, oh, no, I was happy being alone. I was one of those kids who, I like to read. I was in bed all the time. I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't move an inch in the bed. But it all worked out. The therapy worked because I was so young. They had paralyzed me from the knee down and I had a dropped foot. I couldn't wiggle the toes. And, they put a little fork on your foot and they said, do you feel it? I said, no, but I wasn't panicked or angry. I knew this was my destiny and I loved my doctor and I knew he did everything humanly possible. And he was the chief of staff and the president of the Hospital for Joint Diseases, part of Langone now, NYU Langone. So I didn't tell anybody I knew astrology in the beginning. It took years before I kind of let that out. So that's the answer to your question. It was a long answer.
It was great. Do you think it's possible that when you died on the table, you had a near-death experience, even whether you remember it or not? I
knew after that experience, it was such a big operation. And it was in 1992. And my mom came to visit me and she said, I was always in the hospital, 8 months, 7 months, like long, long stays and always tied to the bed where I couldn't walk. It was really unusual. And one day she came in and said, you're going to change your career completely. I said, don't say that, Mama. I was an agent for commercial photographers. I loved it. I was in the top of my game and I loved the beautiful photography. Oh my gosh, I was working with some of the most talented art directors in the world. We were doing ad campaigns. I had chosen the photographers I wanted to represent, but it was hard carrying the portfolios. But the internet was starting and people were putting their work online, so you didn't have to carry them. But when I got home, after all that long stay, and they also found there was something wrong with the thigh bone, the reason I broke it 4 times. And the thigh bone is the thickest bone in your body. It's not supposed to break easily. I had no marrow. It broke like a pencil. And again, intraction, months in the hospital. And when my mother said, you're going to change your profession, I'm like, no, don't say that. I love the photography. Please, Mom, don't say that. But she said, no, you're going into something different. It'll take a few years, maybe 2-3 years. Of course, she was right. Time Warner had come to me When I was interfacing with the art directors, I finally did tell them. And people said, if you're having a really horrible day or some really bad news, call Susan and it's like calling 911. She'll come right away. I did. I would take a taxi right down and I would make the person feel better. I never charged them. I had a job. I was a very successful agent. I didn't want any money. I wanted to help them. Well, I got this reputation of being so good at astrology because my mother, the German side of my family, Alexa Hente, to get it right, she taught me well. And at some point we shot Cheerios. And we shot it on the 8x10 camera, which is upside down. You know how that is. And you're looking at the corners with a loop. And my photographer was a genius at splashes, spills, and pours. I even trademarked the term spill light for him. And we did a beautiful milk splash with the Cheerios dancing in the air for the box for Saatchi and Saatchi. Came out beautiful. And you're not allowed to doctor the product. You have to use the real product. You can doctor the milk. You can make it thicker because milk looks like water on film. And we got this beautiful shot. So I wanted to celebrate with the creative director and the head of copy. They were both senior vice presidents. So I took them to a beautiful restaurant and I read their charts. I said, thank you. And the creative director, Scott, said to me, my wife would love you. And I said, I would love her. What does she do? I remember the exact words. He said, she's creative director of Warner Books. So I went up to the Time Life building because, gosh, that was my first job. I have such happy memories about working for Life. And she and I hit it off so well. To this day, we're friends. And she became my fairy godmother. I would read her chart every once in a while. And once I said to her, Jackie, you should buy lotto tickets. She goes, I'm not. They're a waste of money. I said, I agree with you. They usually are. But you have something promised in your chart. It's promised at birth. You could win something big, and the timing is, I'll tell you, the last 2 weeks in December. You don't have to be buying them for months. I can hone it down. I'm not going to do it, she says. And she doesn't. But she forgot that one of the editors had a little boy, 12 years old, who was selling raffle tickets for the American Cancer Society. And he wanted the bicycle if he sold more books than anybody else. So all the editors said, sure, I'll take 4 books, I'll take 3 books, and he was doing a land office business in the creative department of Warner Books, and Jackie bought some too, but she totally forgot about them, put them in the drawer. So when I was telling her buy a game of chance, she didn't even think of that. She comes home, her answering machine is blinking on New Year's Eve, the last 2 weeks of December. Congratulations, Jackie. You won first prize. You won the Porsche.
Wow.
I'm so happy for her. And she said, but I have 30 editors outside my door that want to say hello to you. I said, look, you had something in your chart that was so unusual. I will never have that. And most of us won't. I don't want to disappoint your editors. But, and then I told her something else that day when I met with her. She took me to beautiful restaurants, China Grill across the street, and down the block. I said to her, you're going to move in 3 years. No, I'm not going to move. I love my rent-controlled apartment. I said, I know, but you're going to be offered something even better. No. Well, I forgot about it. 3 years later, she's moving. And they can't get the desk out of the door. And it's empty, everything she's taken out already. She said, let me take the drawers out because it'll help. So she took them all out, but the middle drawer had one thing in it, an envelope. And she said, what is this? You will move on March 12th in the same year. And it will be a beautiful apartment. You'll never want to leave it. And it'll be better than the one you have, bigger, more spacious. And that was the day. And I had forgotten, she had forgotten. She said, I'm going to get you a book up here. I have a feeling about you. And your profile is sky high up here. She did get me a little book. It sold out right away. And then she said a year later, in 1995, July, I'm going to send you upstairs to the webmaster of Time Incorporated. I said, what does he want? She said, I don't think they know. You tell him what he needs, which was a very good answer. I think whenever you meet with a very powerful person, you should have several ideas in your pocket in case they don't like the first one. And that was the day when, it was that month when I got the approval to do Astrology Zone. They wanted to do something little, 50 words per sign, for women. I said, wait a minute, astrology is interesting to men too. Everyone, it's a human curiosity to want to know the future. In Mesopotamia, 2400 BC, it was the province of the king to be able to afford the mathematician in a college that he could get to the palace on horseback within a day so he could go back to the college to teach the next morning. So women didn't have that privilege. Men had it in the beginning. And then, of course, women loved it too as time went on. So they said, well, that makes sense. And you don't want to write short? I said, no, I want to write long once a month. They said, that's crazy. That flies in the face of all the pundits. You're supposed to write 500 words. I said, no, that's okay for other people, other sites. I'm going to write long because when it's about my reader, astrology can be confusing if it's too short or misleading. I need to present my case and I need room. They said, we can't possibly pay you enough for all that writing. I said, it's not about money. It's about helping people. If God wants me to do this, he'll find a way to protect me. Plus, I have a day job. And Time Incorporated let me do what I wanted. Most companies would not. Believe me, I know who they are in publishing. I write for Vogue Japan, W Korea, Tempo in Turkey, Claudia Brazil, Amica Italy, Moda Spain, Vogue Germany, Vogue China, Vogue Greece. I've written for everybody, and currently I'm writing for 4: Amica and Vogue Japan and W Korea and Vogue China. And it's most companies, if it wasn't their idea, they reject it. But they said I was passionate, and they let me try it out, and it worked. Yeah, I think the thing I want your listeners to come away with is, if you have an instinct about something, fight for it. Keep going toward it, because the person you're talking to probably isn't as well versed in your specialty as you are. And if you feel certain that people will like what you're presenting, at least try really hard to change the other person's mind, the person who has to okay your idea. And Time said yes to everything. I stayed with them 3 years, and then they got involved with AOL, and I had to leave. By that time, I had written to Apple. I didn't like the way Steve Jobs was being portrayed in the press. The PC people were making fun of him. So I said, would you give me your logo? I'll put it on the front page of my website, because all the parts of my website, even in Time, their servers are Apple. So could you, it's like correct. If publishers all had an apple on the front page, they'd be bouncing all over the net, and Steve would be treated better. And they said, who are you? I said, I'm a little mouse, but I want to help. And they made the introduction to the Walt Disney Company. And so even though every door was slamming in my face, Apple made the introduction to InfoSeek, which was becoming Disney within a month. So I was on Go.com and ABC News for 3 more years. And then after that, I had the courage to jump off a cliff and hire my own staff and run my own business. But I had the 6 years of study of the internet with two media giants. They taught me a lot. And I guess I was ready. But Disney was moving away from internet, and they were ending all their contracts in internet. So I didn't really have a choice, but it was time. But I still had to find a way to make money. So ebooks were coming out. Warner did not want to do ebooks. I was writing subsequent books for them, and they said, oh, no, not ebooks. So I heard that Barnes & Noble was interested in ebooks. And I asked my publisher if I might have permission to call them, because in your contract, you have to give rights of first refusal. I called the office and I told the operator, I don't know who to speak to. She said, I think you should talk to one of the brothers, the partners at the very top. I'm putting you through now. Before I could say, well, maybe we shouldn't. She put me right through. And he said to me, Susan, you're in Manhattan, aren't you? I said, yes. How did you know that? He said, can you come now? Can you come right this minute? I said, let me throw a dress on. Yes. And I came out with 5-book contract, and I could pay my staff. So that was divine intervention.
That's great.
So that's it's a long and winding road, but you're constantly learning when you're in your own business, right? I mean,
yes, you have to be.
I find that you're right up close to your flaws. I have a major flaw in that I'm not good at hiring. Well, I've had a little trouble recently, but I usually take people at face value, and I'm not suspicious. I tend to trust everyone, and that's been a weakness. So my staff says to me, we're going to interview all the new assistants that you go through, that you want. I had a wonderful assistant for 6 years, but since she left in February, I'm still not settled yet. So we're I've had a couple of girls, but they're going to help me. And when it's a flaw, ask for help. Right? So
now, earlier you mentioned that you have to like math to do astrology. So how much of astrology is based on math?
Well, NASA knows where all the planets are, of course. We have the James Webb telescope, and they know where they're going. They have tables that are published online. It's called an ephemeris. Ephemeral means quickly moving. And they have all the planets, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, whatever planet you want to look up. And when two planets make an aspect, they could be shoulder to shoulder. That's a conjunction, aligned perfectly, like people at the bank. Imagine 3 people at the bank online, 3 little people behind each other. That's 3 planets aligned. Or you could have 2 planets. If they're 60 degrees apart, that means it's a sextile and it's an opportunity. But if it's a square, 90 degrees, then you have to tweak what you made when it was the conjunction. The sextile was an opportunity. You were still growing and tending your garden. But when the square comes, you start to run into obstacles. And the economy is going to run into a few obstacles this coming May. So we have to tweak it, get out the toolbox, get out the screwdriver, and then the wrench. And then when it's a trine, it means it worked and it continues. And you get tremendous luck and opportunity. But really special. A trine is 120 degrees between 2 planets. It's just heavenly. And if you get 3 planets forming a triangle, that's a grand trine, and that's insanely wonderful. Then there's an opposition, like 2 people opposite each other. Well, that could be completion, like two halves of an apple coming together, or it could be discord and confrontation. It depends on how the other little planets are behaving around this opposition, and then so forth. If you imagine a clock, it's it's cyclical. And I have to decode what the planets are trying to tell us. And because I'm so detailed, so specific, I mentioned certain birthdays. Like, for example, last November 8th, we had an eclipse, a very difficult eclipse. And Leo, Aquarius, and Taurus, and Scorpio, who were born in that week around the 8th of the month, plus or minus 5 days. I never say the word around. I'm very specific. They had a hard time. But eclipses are on our side, and they cleanse things quickly, and they present news to you that you need to know. And it's there to protect you, even though sometimes the news is hard. Like if you're being betrayed by a friend, or if a company you thought was doing fine goes out of business and you had no idea and you lose your job, whatever it is, an eclipse moves you along, pushes you on a very rapid timetable. I've written essays about it. It's right on the homepage of Astrology Zone, how to deal with eclipses. If one of your listeners is a Scorpio or a Taurus who had even a Aquarius or Leo had a hard time in November or October or December, because we work with bell curves. You can feel an eclipse 1 month to the day earlier, plus or minus 4 days, or 1 month later, plus or minus 4 days. 75% feel it right on the day of the eclipse. 15% feel it early, 10% feel it later. I spell it all out, and so that you won't be broadsided. I really don't like to give my readers like tense news, but then I think, what if they go in and ask for a raise on this horrible day, or have a talk with their boyfriend or girlfriend? You want to stay away from those days. Open the window and see what flies in, but don't initiate anything. Just react to other people, but don't initiate. So it's not enough to say it could be a challenging eclipse. I have to give my readers tools to get out of the briar patch. If they're in a maze with all thorny, plants and things around you, I have to find a way. I have to look at the good aspects in the chart, because there's always something good. How can they get out of that and recover from it quickly, or as quick as is possible? Some things can't be quick.
You mentioned
some are take a while to adjust to. Now, of course, we've all been through those events. Life isn't that easy, but yet there's the brilliant side, the beautiful side, the loving side, the magical side. Life gives you everything. It's a gift. It's a wonderful gift.
You mentioned that in May there's going to be some problems with the economy. What are some of the other upcoming trends for 2023?
Let me just explain that. Jupiter and Pluto start a conjunction, or an alignment, is the most important, heaviest, biggest aspect. And we had it in 2020 when we had the birth of the pandemic. But as we were going into the year, I thought, this is going to be a great year. Money's going to flow. We're going to hear of big, big deals. There's just money just flowing and big, big things. Well, I didn't think it was going to be the recovery payouts from the government. I didn't even think that was possible. But you know what they needed to do? People couldn't lose their apartments and their houses and not have enough food. I mean, the government had to do it. Now, in May, Jupiter and Pluto, imagine a clock. They were at 12 o'clock, two hands on the 12. Now one hand has moved to a 3 on the clock. So that's a square. That means, okay, we have to look at what we've done and tweak it, make it better. Look at what the Fed has done with raising the interest rates. And oh boy, they're on a rampage. They did it, I think, again today. And make some adjustments from the information we have. And sometimes we don't have full information. And you have to be comfortable sometimes making decisions in the face of ambiguity. Of all the signs, Pisces is the one that likes, doesn't necessarily like, but finds it the easiest to do because they have such strong instinct. So we have that square on May 17th, but the following year in June 2024, we have a beautiful trine. And so whatever they're doing this May is going to work. So if there is a recession, I'm going to go on record by saying it's a short one. It's only going to last a year and it will be effective. The tools that they use to fix it will be good, and that the economy is basically strong, and that, people should just make plans accordingly. Look, right now, interest rates are through the roof if you want to buy a house. Oh. So putting off buying a house is a good idea because things adjust later. So I don't think it's a long recession. Other trends? Well, everybody wants to know where Jupiter's going to be. Jupiter's the giver of gifts and luck. Jupiter's Santa Claus. He just wants to make you happy. He asks nothing in return. So he comes with a cornucopia. It's like poking the piñata and all the presents fall on your head. This year, Jupiter's been in Aquarius in 2022. I'm sorry, got to start again. In 2022, Jupiter was in Aries, and it shared some of the time with Pisces. So Pisces had some wonderful breakthroughs happen early in 2022, from, say, January to early May. Then from early May to October, Aries got their turn. But then Jupiter felt bad that he didn't give Pisces enough time. So they're having a glorious November and December. But up until the 20th of December, then Jupiter comes back to entrepreneurial Aries. And I like it in Aries. Aries is experimental. It's a sign of starting new things. Aries is born at the time that the buds come out, the flowers, but they're not fully out like Taurus. They're just starting. The little seedlings are coming up. And that's what Aries does so well. They start things and they rally the team and they make breakthroughs. So the first half of the year is really great up until May 16th for Aries, Leo, Sagittarius, and for Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. Then it moves into Taurus, and the other signs get their happy time. Taurus, Virgo, Capricorn, and then the water signs, because earth and water make flowers. It's a very compatible two elements. You get Pisces, Cancer, Scorpio. So there's chocolates for everybody next year. And we have a lot to look forward to. This year, we had one little glitch. Mars is the energy planet. He's the fuel you put in your car to make it go. Well, Mars went into Gemini, and you're a Gemini. You must have been moving at the speed of light. But sometimes Mars gives you a little too much stimulation, so you could have felt at times that you had a finger in both sockets of your electrical outlets, because it can be a little too much. But then on October 30th, 2022, Mars went retrograde, and it's still retrograde. It will go direct on January 12th, and it will stay in Gemini until March 25th. And that's the sweet time for Gemini. Then it'll go straight into Cancer for 6 weeks. Usually Mars stays in for 6 weeks. For Gemini to have Mars in their sign for 7 months, they're the ones making the headlines. They're doing a lot. But this is a high kind of high wire sign. They have nervous energy, and sometimes it's a little too much, and it might have been hard. So Gemini has to take breaks. But then it's Cancer, and then Leo, and then Virgo, and then Libra, Scorpio, and it ends the year in 2023 with Sagittarius, Mars and Sagittarius. So next year we get more variety, because when Mars goes into different houses, it helps you in a very positive way. He's not going retrograde again for 2 years. I'll just give you one idea of how math enters into it. When Mars is going nicely, he's healthy, he's perfect, like in 2023, after January 12th. It'll take him a little while to ramp up, but, for all practical purposes. When he's healthy, he takes 2 days to go 1 degree, half a degree a day. When he starts to retrograde, like he did in October, he takes, and it started around the 15th of October, and then he actually went retrograde at the 30th. It takes 18 days for him to go 1 degree. So if your listeners have been saying, I don't know why things have taken more time, more money, more effort, they should not take this much time. It's because Mars, we get so used to his support to move things along. Clients were hesitant to make a commitment. Everything sort of goes into a deep freeze. I have a theory too, because of inflation, budgets probably got eaten up very fast. So by November and December, they probably were depleted. And so people were waiting until January for the new budget to kick in. And of course, it always takes a few weeks before everybody knows what they're doing. So by the end of January, we have a really nice new moon, January 21st. Things are really rolling. People are optimistic. People are happy. And you know what? Starting the year kind of slowly, we don't have to hit the ground running. It's kind of slow, like a little kitten on little paws coming on snow, coming into the new year. It might be okay, because the holidays are a little strenuous, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
So everybody has something to celebrate in 2023. I can be more specific if you want me to go through the signs. I can tell you what would be a worthy goal. Well, Aries has their emerald year. Every 12 years, you get Jupiter in your sign. And so they have it now until May 16th. So if you're in Aries, you should be making your wish list and going after the one thing that you want the most by the end of this year, of the new year. And it's kind of a blank check in terms of what is that wish. When Jupiter goes into Taurus after May 16th, the seeds that Aries planted start coming up in their garden. They start to see money, really good money. In the first part of the year, they get lucky breaks. They get to talk to influential people, but they haven't seen the final tangible money. They will. They will see that later. Taurus, you're getting your emerald year, May 16th. And for you, it's uninterrupted. It goes all the way to your next birthday in May of 2024. So this is incredible. And then Taurus will make money in 2024. It always is the second gestation, but you really need to work hard when you have these very lucky and rare years, because you want to plant seeds, because the things you start will carry you forward for a decade or more and bring you substantial money in that time. Gemini had a fabulous career year in 22. In 23, it's not what you know, but who you know. And I want Gemini to socialize. I also want them to try a new social platform. I'm trying Discord. I'm on Twitter. I love Twitter, but now I'm a little scared with Gemini Elon Musk at the helm. We don't know what he's going to do. I'm hope Twitter's such a nice area to have debate or to meet people and hear what they have to say, that I hope he keeps it safe and nice for all of us. But I enjoy Discord too, and I'm on Instagram. And it's all at Astrology Zone, because there are too many Susan Millers. But anyway, Gemini, I want you to enlarge your circle of friends, okay? Even join a real life club. We can actually go out and see people. I know they're telling us that we have to be careful, that we could have another resurgence of COVID. And I know a lot of people who are sick right now, including my daughter. And she's had it 3 times and she keeps getting the shots, but she has a little 6-year-old who brings home, viruses. So we have to be careful, but we are going out more. We are going to conventions. We're going to seminars. We're doing normal things again. And if we don't get a really bad resurgence, we'll be able to continue it. So I'd like you to join a club and show up once in a while. Cancer, you have spectacular aspects. First, with foreign people, foreign markets. Also with publishing, broadcasting, and with colleges, going back to school, maybe getting your advanced degree. And because you have Jupiter in that house, ask for a scholarship, because you probably could get one. And don't say, oh, I'll never get into that school. Try. When you have luck, you should not settle. Jupiter wants you to be happy. Okay, so you go for the gold when you have Jupiter in a certain house. It will move into your career house, Cancer, and this is honors, awards, achievement, fame. It's where the 12 is on a clock at the very pinnacle point of your chart. Oh, this is such a good house. This is prestige and honors and awards and rewards. So you're going to really make your career a focus in the second half, from May 16th to the end of the year and into the first part of the following year, because you can move so fast. Yes, you'll always get opportunities. Always. I can always give you a good aspect, but this one shines like diamonds in the sun. This one, you have to wait 12 years for this. So gotta listen to me. Okay, now Leo gets the career aspects that Cancer will have at the beginning of the year, at the second half of the year. From May 16th to May 24th, 2024, you have 5 out of 10 possible heavenly bodies in your house of honors, awards, achievement, fame. To say that your name is going to be on the big marquee, Leo, is an understatement. And they love that. Many of them are in arts or entertainment. They make great managers. We've had a lot of Leo presidents. They're very good at giving enthusiasm to others, like Aries does. Fire signs have that quality. But your career is amazing. I would like you to take an overseas trip in either February, March, or April. I want you to go somewhere you never thought you'd ever see, like Istanbul or Cairo or something exotic, Beijing, see the Great Wall. I've done that. It's amazing. Or go to Rome or Venice or someplace you've always wanted to go, or go back to. But I would like it to be a place that you haven't been yet. Okay, so Leo, you're set. Virgo is doing so well in their career right now. It's astounding. You have until March 25th to make your mark. You will, but you'll make better progress February and March than you are right now, but you're still doing really well because you started over the summer of 22 and you're building steam, but the really sweetest, the big hibiscus flower, as big as a dinner plate, starts growing in your garden. So you're going to love that. you also are going to make good money, especially if your money is based on a performance, such as commission, royalty, licensing fee, something like that. Or you could get an inheritance or win a prize, maybe a contest for your essay that you wrote. Money comes to you. If you want a mortgage, I think by then, by the first half of the year, you may get a good deal. You know what's happening? People who have to sell their houses know that the interest rates are high, and so they're lowering their price to make it affordable. And if any sign can get the right mortgage, it's definitely Virgo or Capricorn in 2022. They're the little lucky leprechauns who are going to find the deal. And then in the second half of the year, I want you to travel or go back to school. But many Virgos are very talented in writing. Sometimes when I have a young person, they say, I want to be a writer, or I want to be an editor. If they don't have some Virgo or Gemini, maybe Sagittarius, they're great storytellers. They're good for screenplays or novels that keep you turning the pages. If you don't have one of those three signs, you're not going to really go far. And, you know, in this world, there's so much competition. We have to be the best at what we do. So I think it could be in the realm of publishing or broadcasting. Maybe you start a podcast series that you do well, Virgo. Okay, Libra. Libra's had a kind of oxymoron in the fifth house of love. They have Saturn there. Saturn wants you to work, not play. And this is the house of joyous fun with friends and love and romance. Or maybe they had a baby and they found taking care of the little one is much harder than they thought, but it gets easier now. Saturn's leaving on March 7th and Jupiter's in their house of marriage. If they're not married, they could become engaged anywhere from December 20th, maybe for the holidays, all the way through to May 16th. Or if they're already married, their partner does really well. Then Jupiter goes into their money house. And I'm particularly happy about telling Libra this. Those eclipses I talked about earlier, November 8th or October 25th, there was one. There's been a series of eclipses in their money houses. They all are going to make money in a different way, but they had a bad surprise. Many of them did, not everybody, but I would say a majority of Libras had a bad setback with money, a big expense, something they didn't see coming. Now the universe makes a correction, and you're going to be a money magnet, is the only thing I can say. Scorpio, you have lovely assignments in the beginning of the year, the first 4.5 months. Everybody in your department says, why does he get the best assignments? Or why does she get the best ones? Well, she deserves it. She's worked hard. If you're a Scorpio, you can also lose weight with Jupiter in that house. If you added a few pandemic pounds, they're going to come right off. You're going to want to eat better. You're going to want to eat more natural, good foods, less processed foods that come in a little bag like potato chips. And you're going to eat better, and the pounds are just going to come off. It's a very good aspect for losing weight. And don't be, obsessive or crazy or starvation. No, eat just right, and it will come off by itself. And then they get the marriage aspects, and they do very well, not only with marriage, though, but with partners, like getting an agent, getting a publicist, getting a social media manager, people who work with you on a one-on-one basis in a confidential way. Scorpio, this person's a gem, but you won't be able to hire them until after May 16th, but this person will be great. And you won't have to even ask them, what are they doing? You're going to see what they're doing. It's great. Sagittarius has been working a lot on communication projects. Many of them have started podcasts or blogs or writing books. They're little energizers. That was this year. They have the best love aspects for new love of any sign of the zodiac. Incredibly romantic. Let's call the Sagittarians the little Valentines. They are going to have a whole 4.5 months to meet the right person for them. And after that, it's all about health and fitness for them. This is an athletic sign. They're stronger than most signs. These are our Olympians, and they embody the sign, the spirit of mind, body, spirit. Strong mind, strong body, strong spirit. It's the whole Greek ideal, and they embody it very, very well. We have a lot of Olympians who are Sagittarians. So they're all set. They're going to be really happy the first 4 months, and then they'll meet someone and that'll carry them through. Could be forever. And, also the number one question I get, can I have a baby? There's an epidemic of couples who can't seem to conceive, or even women are trying to have babies on their own too with IVF. With Jupiter in the 5th house, you can conceive more easily than most times. So I would say February, March, April, and first part of May would be the best time to try. And if you have a child, you could help that child or develop their talent during that time. Now we're getting close to the end, where we're getting to the last 3. Capricorn has the best real estate aspects, bar none, in the first half of the year. Do not settle for anything less than large, spacious, sunny, large closets. The neighborhood you want. When my daughter graduated from college, she was looking at an apartment that I thought was way too small for her friends. She said they were going to share. And I said, no, this is terrible. This is no, this is wrong. And I kind of nixed the deal without meaning to. So my daughter was mad at me and she said, astrology doesn't work in Manhattan, Mommy. I said, no, it does. And 2 months later, she found the most beautiful place right in the neighborhood, the Lower East Side, that she wanted. It had an elevator. It had a duplex with a spiral staircase in the middle of the living room. And each girl got a spacious room and big windows. It's very sunny. It's everything I had predicted. So if you're Capricorn, don't settle. And what's great for Capricorn, this is all about your personal life this year. I know you're the most ambitious sign. You are the little goat that climbs to the top of the mountain, and you're known to be philosopher king, according to Plato. Spend time on your personal life. Feather your nest, and then invite love in. Love is glorious from May 16th to the following May. Aquarius, you've been under a lot of strain because you've had Saturn on the sun since December 17th, 2019. Saturn's leaving on March 7th of 2023. You're done for 29 years. And when he comes back, Saturn rules older people, so you're more comfortable with him. You usually learn 85% of everything he's going to teach you, but he is a little drill sergeant. And everything you gain through hard work and determination and burning the midnight oil. You've had a strenuous few years, but you're going to have a lot to show for it. What you get with Saturn, you get to keep. And so that applies to you, Aquarius. Pisces gets it next, and they're going to be taking on some very big responsibility. But Aquarius, when I started my internet site, I had Saturn right over my head like you did. And now my anniversary is next week, 27 years. And so few of the sites that I started with are still there. There are some like Match.com, and I don't know, there were different ones. I can't remember many of them. A lot of them disappeared, but I remember Match came out. So just know that it's really good for you. And money's going to tighten up a little bit, but you'll get good at buying below retail. You're going to find bargains. You're going to compensate for it. And it's going to be very good because your employer isn't going to want to give raises out. So try to get them in February and then you'll be set because this trend starts in March. But Aquarius with Jupiter going into Taurus, you can get the real estate aspects that Capricorn has. Now, the last sign is Pisces. And they don't care about money that much. I mean, they do. I mean, everybody needs money, but that's not ever a main concern. And the universe is going to make a correction. You're going to make a lot of money. There's also a big trend coming in on communication, writing, speaking, podcasting, all kinds of digital things coming in for you in the second half of the year. So I think everybody has something to be excited about, don't you?
Yeah. Susan, thank you so much for sharing those trends with us. I believe that you're an accredited astrologer. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. If someone wants to find an accredited astrologer like you, how do they do that? You
go to the clubs. The one thing that I suggest, because people are busy, the clubs have conventions once in a while, like in a hotel like the Hyatt. And they have 3 days, maybe over Labor Day weekend or something like that. And then you meet other astrologers and they have basic classes and they have advanced classes. And it's really fun. You meet them at breakfast, you meet them at lunch, you meet them at the banquet. You get a sense of that person understands me and I would like to work with that person. I would like that person to read my chart. I think it's nice to meet people in person. So the conventions are my favorite way. I don't have time to go to meetings, but now they're all doing online. And so it only would take a couple of hours on a Sunday afternoon or a Friday night or something like that. The two clubs are the International Society for Astrological Research, ISAR, or the one that's even bigger in the United States, but they're both big, I should say, the National Council for Geocosmic Research, NCGR. They're in every city, every major city, and they give classes and tests. So you start with the basic one, and you move along until you've taken the 4th level, and then you become accredited. But it takes time because your brain has to assimilate all the planets. Let me give you an example. I write a calendar every year, and I'm going to send you one of these. And I do them from scratch, and I write down what's happening on the most important days. And, it's such a labor of love. So you have all the days here that are key. Sometimes I'll get a day like Jupiter conjunct Mercury. Mercury is writing, it's contracts, it's negotiation. Wow, you couldn't get a better day to sign a contract. However, if on the same day, Neptune, the planet, it has two sides to it. And if the planet of fog and confusion and misunderstanding is opposite the sun on the same day, I can't recommend that day to sign a contract. So I have to look at what the other little people are doing. I always think of the planets as they're at a cocktail party and there are 8 of them plus the sun and moon. And yes, we look at Pluto. We must look at Pluto. So because very powerful planet. And they come in and they're talking to each other and I have to decode it. And it's really fun.
Were both President Reagan and Nancy using an astrologer, or was it just Nancy? Yes, they both
were. He was an actor. He never said he didn't believe in astrology. He kept saying, oh, that's Nancy's favorite thing to do. But he never said, not me. And we were all glad he was listening to somebody like that. Yeah, Princess Diana went to an astrologer too. But I think she knew she was under really bad aspects. Yeah.
Do you have a lot of celebrity clients?
I have some. I know they're reading me because they tell me, like when I met Jennifer Aniston at a dinner party, she told me she did. And Pharrel, is a very good friend, and he just dropped an album. And he said, Susie, which day should I drop it? I want to do it either the end of October or the beginning of November. I said, you got to stay away from that eclipse on November 8th. So we were working that out, or Cynthia Raleigh, the designer. I said, I don't like the day that you're having your fashion show on Fashion Week, because I'm afraid the models aren't going to show up, some of them, or that the clothes could get stuck in customs because the 8th house of foreign deliveries was being accented in a bad way. So we moved it. She was able to move it. I do have well-known people, but I don't like to talk about them because it tends to be a very private thing. But they're just like us. To tell you the truth, my favorite person to read is the normal person who's trying to send her child to college. Maybe she's the first, that child would be the first one in their family to go to college. I used to write for the Daily News, and the common person, the everyday person that you see on the bus or the subway, they are my heroes. Definitely. And they don't have a lot of the privilege that other people have. So I have to work harder on charts for them. And I enjoyed writing for the Daily News. They just didn't pay me enough. I had the whole page. I had several columns on the page. I stayed 2 years, but I finally went, I have apps. If you go to Apple or Google Play and you just put in Susan Miller, both my apps come up. And they're both award winners. And I designed them and I worked with a team. And now Apple's made me, you are an Apple developer. They have to study you. They want to see your bank statements, your American Express statements, everything. They study you like the FBI. They want only people that will represent Apple well if you're on the store. And I was honored to be told I was an Apple developer. And so, and I pay my team.
Is it true that in one of the buildings in the Vatican, there's like an astrology chart or some kind of astrological diagram?
Like in Petra and in Pompeii and all the ancient cities, everybody, there's signs of, I've seen it in the museum where, the celestial, all the constellations are pictured. I want to clear something up. I'm really glad you brought that up because someone said to me, you're a devout Catholic. I said, I am. You can't go through all the surgery and cliffhanging of maybe not making it and come out not religious. I know that there is divine intervention with me. And they said, well, how can you be an astrologer? Every religion has at its base the need for every person to take responsibility for their actions. You can't say that the planet made me do it. Why did you steal your neighbor's pig? Because Mercury was retrograde. No, because you're a bad person. Why did you go out with your neighbor's wife? Because she was pretty and Venus was on my sun? No, because you're a bad person. You're not supposed to go out with your neighbor's wife. No, you can't blame a planet for your bad behavior. And that's what the church was trying to get across. You know what I found through the medical? Nature doesn't do anything she doesn't have to do. She conserves her energy. So give you an example. When you bleed internally, like I did, Mother Nature says, Susan's bleeding. She's going to have to make new blood. She's going to need to survive. I'm going to capture all the red blood cells that she's bleeding inside her and bring them up to her marrow. And then the rest will go as waste. But normally it takes 8 weeks to make a blood cell. But when you're in real trouble and you're bleeding internally, it only takes 3 weeks. By the way, my trainer told me something. I always want to encourage people to give blood because 40 people saved my life and I don't know their names because you don't know their names. Who gave me this bottle of blood? I don't know. But when you give blood regularly, your body gets used to making it faster. And he told me if you ever got in an accident, if you were giving blood a lot, nature rewards you by building it faster.
That's great.
He said it's a medical fact. So I hope that's true.
When I was doing my research and preparing for our conversation today, I was looking up YouTube videos and I noticed some of the most popular ones were about how to interpret your own birth chart. What are your thoughts on that?
This is what I'm dealing with. During the pandemic, a lot of people were not working. For example, if you were an actor, nobody was in production. Remember that first year? Mm-hmm. Nothing was happening. We were afraid to leave the house. Everybody was. So actresses or actors said, oh, I read a book. I'm going to start charging. I'm an astrologer. Because if you go on Instagram and you put in astrologer or horoscope, it's crazy how many people, hundreds. And some are qualified and some totally are not. It's almost like taking a course on brain surgery. And now you're ready. Here are all the scalpels you'll need. I'll get you a couple of nurses to help you. And here's the book and here's all the diagrams. You too can be a brain surgeon. I was in a studio in California. I was on a lifestyle show and I was coming off and I don't know how to drive. I'm such a Manhattan person. I don't know how to drive. And remember, I was in the hospital when kids learn how to drive. I was 14 and I had a brace on my leg and crutches. And, I never learned how to drive. So I called Uber, but the stage manager came out and she said, I need to talk to you. I said, oh, sure. Would you do my chart? I said, let's cancel Uber. This is an emergency. She said, I went over to the Four Seasons. They had a Oscar party. And, entertainment's so big in LA, you feel the thundering presence when you're there. And she said they had the winners of the Oscars, and Mercedes-Benz was sponsoring it. And it was beautiful because it was at the Four Seasons. But they had an astrologer, and he told me that I was going to be on food stamps and that I would be poverty stricken and I would never be able to pay my rent. And goodness knows how I'd ever get through it. I said, he told you that? She said, yeah. I said, well, this is an emergency. Do you know what time you're born? And I'm typing. And she did. She knew right to the minute. She had Saturn in the second house of money. The place Pisces is going to have it this year, but Pisces has Jupiter there, which is just the opposite. I said, he totally misinterpreted this. I see you. When you have Saturn there, Saturn teaches you to think long term. I think you're a saver. You're a little squirrel who saves every good little acorn you can find. She said, yes, that's why I was so upset when he told me that. I said, you're going to laugh all the way to the bank and you will never be poverty stricken. And look, Saturn is well aspected to all these planets. And I showed her. And I know the people at the Four Seasons because before my daughter moved to LA to be in entertainment, she's the music producer for James Corden. She does the carpool karaoke. She's won 6 Emmys. 4 for Apple Music and 2 for CBS. She, I stay at the Four Seasons, so they know me. And I said, listen, I'm sure when you have an Oscar party, you're worried about the menu with the client and the tablecloths and the flowers. And then the client said, oh, and let's have an astrologer for fun. You have to be careful with that. Call me in New York. I will give you names, but don't just pluck a name out of a hat. Because this man made this lady so upset she was having nightmares. And I'm glad by some coincidence I happened to be in the studio and she asked me to help her. My mother always said to me, you must study 12 years. You could say something wrong and forever that person may not meet another astrologer to straighten out what you said. Or you may say the right thing but not in a way that's sophisticated enough to make the person understand. Because remember, I was 14 years old when I was learning astrology. So you have to learn communication and how to communicate with people clearly so that there's no question, or if they have a question, to answer it thoroughly. And that was a perfect example. And then I deal with the press, both the domestic and foreign press, all the time, especially at this time of the year. And I have to defend my category, astrology, but there are people in it that aren't quite qualified. But I guess that's in every field, photography, medicine. I guess it's a universal problem. And I just encourage people, if they want to learn astrology, they have to study a long time. And in the beginning, you want to give up because it's like juggling 8 oranges and you have to keep your eye on all of them. But you're building synapse in your brain to be able to handle it. And I have a photographic memory that helps.
I would assume there's even people out there that just buy a computer program.
Some people are getting good with it. I've been giving speeches at Louis Vuitton. They asked me to help celebrate Mr. Vuitton's 200th anniversary. They told me they didn't have any books on Mr. Vuitton. They knew nothing about his personality, but they did know his birthday and they knew his time of birth from his grandson because he had the original birth certificate and he was born in France. And so I read the chart and I described him. The more I read the chart, they had me read for different media outlets. And every time I would read the chart, I'd see something new because that's what's fun about astrology. New things occur to you. You start to see beautiful little gems of aspects that you didn't notice the first time. You know, it's a little like when you moved out of your parents' house. I moved into a studio, so I didn't live with other people. And I thought, oh my gosh, there's so much to do. I have to do the laundry. I have to take out the trash. I have to make the bed. I have things that my mother used to fill in. I had to do everything. I was exhausted the first 3 months, but then you get used to it. Same thing when you have a baby. Oh my goodness, it's 24/7. But then you get used to it and you're able to handle it. You have to give yourself time when you're studying something new, like studying French. You have, which I studied for a long time, and I wish I remembered more of it because I did it in college. But it's something that you have to give your brain time to work on.
You've got the website, you've got Discord, you've got apps, you've got books. Do you have anything that you're working on that you want us to know about?
I'm in NFTs. This is new. And it's so amazing. This man called me and he said, I have a team and we want to work with you. And I want to teach you Web3 and I want you to get into NFTs. And I said, sure. And I never thought I would feel the excitement that I feel now. The same excitement as when I started on the internet. My friends would say, why should I buy a painting, an NFT, which I have right on I give you examples on the front page of my website, my homepage of astrologyzone.com. It used to be about art. That used to be the main event, but now it's called the utility. What benefits do you get? And the benefits are, I have 1.3 million unique readers coming in every month to the website. We don't know how many exactly on the app, because if you downloaded the app last year, they don't count it this year. They just count engagement, but I have 60 million engagements last year. So you have this big audience, but you want to learn from them. You want to hear what happened to them. So I went on Discord, and if you have an NFT, it doesn't have to look like you. They're beautiful. I was the creative director working on it because the ancients described the face of every sign. And I worked with my favorite artist, and you'll see his results are beautiful. And they're only $200 each NFT, and it's in the blockchain. You have the license. You can make T-shirts. You can make You can make a painting on your wall if you want to make a print, or you can make stationery, or you just use it as a ticket, because that's the main utility or benefit. You come and see me in these private chat rooms that we set up on Discord. And I like Discord. See, with Twitter, you only see 20% of your followers, depending on or Instagram or Facebook, depending on their algorithm. With Discord, you see 100%. And if Twitter dies, I have 503,000 people on there that I cannot bring with me somewhere else. But on Discord, it's your server, it's your people. You get to keep them close. And what's so much fun is all the people coming on were from different countries. They were from Australia, they were from England, they were from Liverpool. I mean, people were from everywhere. There were some Americans, but there were more Europeans. And they had amazing jobs. This one young woman, I said, "Where do you live?" She said, "Detroit." I said, "What do you do?" She said, "I'm an automotive designer." I'm like, "You go, girl." Oh my gosh. And she was laughing. She was a Black girl. And she said, "Yes, I mean, I cracked through and they love my work." Whoa, I feel so inspired. Other people are in crypto security, cybersecurity, I should say. Others are in different ends of the metaverse, or they're real estate brokers, or they're in every possible field. They're actors and designers, and I'm so inspired by them. I'm going to go on again on the 14th, and I keep going on twice a month. And we're going to have live events too, and they don't have to pay. If they just bought one NFT, they come in and they get to see me, and I get to see them, which is a pleasure for me. And we answer questions and we talk as a group. And I answer we call it AMA, Ask Me Anything, AMA sessions. And they really like it. And I'm glad they do. But you're always taking feedback from the people who read you. So important.
If people want to contact you, do they do that through your website?
Yes, but I have very limited time reading charts. So I do have astrologers I vetted, people who've written books, so forth. And then I put them together. I'm kind of expensive because I can only do 1 or 2 charts in a month. But the people that I've met through the clubs and respect so much, I just put them together and you make your deal, but I know they charge much less than me. But people should know that it's a lot of work. Before you meet your astrologer, that man or woman has to go through your chart and study it for a couple of hours before you ever meet. So even though I do 2-hour charts, I'm Miss Thorough of the Western world, but other people might only do an hour. My former assistant loves astrology, and she's doing what she calls 15-minute bomb readings. She's young, but I can't answer a serious question in 15 minutes. I have to ask a lot of questions. I have to go backwards and forwards in time. Remember, when you're doing astrology, you can go backwards or forwards in time. It's all math. And here's something for you to think about. Your chart will never be replicated in time, space, or geography, ever. Not even twins have the same chart, because astrology is so excruciatingly mathematical. So you are unique. So what does that mean? You have to sing the song that's in your heart, not the song that your professor told you to sing, or that your parents said you have to be a doctor, you have to be a lawyer, whatever it is. You have to be what you feel inside that you were meant for. Yes, it's good to take recommendations and think about what people say to you. But if you don't want to go in that direction, then don't, because we have one life and we have to make the most of it. We have to contribute something, leave the world a better place.
Susan, before we finish up, can you leave us with one last positive message?
Oh, yes. listen, I've been through some really hard times. I remember telling my mother when I was in the hospital, and they weren't even sure they could keep my left leg, and things were not going well, in the first few days. And I said, Mama, I'm in the middle of the ocean on a raft, and it's night, and the waves are 15 feet high, and it's scary, and I have no idea which way land is. She said, you will get to land. And when you get to shore, I'm going to be standing there, and I'm going to help you. And I want everybody to know that the challenges we're given are given for a reason. And it makes you stronger, even though we don't want to go through it at all. But once we do face it and we do go through it, and I've had many more challenges after that, different ones in health, especially my eyes, where I have to get a needle in my eye every 4 weeks for 13 years now to keep me from going blind. I seem to have scooped up some things in my hereditary, family, but I love them and I wouldn't ever change my family. But just know that we all have something. Sometimes when you're facing a crisis, you think everybody else has it easy. No, everybody has something, and you can master it, and you can grow stronger from it. And then you can help other people because you're sensitive to it. And then that's the best part of all.
Susan, thank you for that message. And thank you again for being my guest.
Oh, thank you. I'm thrilled to be on your show. Thank you.
Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.